Welcome to Le Grande Bouffe,
the big feast,
with Cole Smithey and Mike Lacy, where we copiously consume international culture and politics through the prism of a single film and a single craft beer.
What do we got today, craft beer-wise, Cole?
Read that, baby. You tell me what that thing says.
We got Arrogant Bastard.
It's not just any old arrogant bastard. This is the bourbon barrel-aged, dare I say, motherfucking arrogant bastard. This is such a good beer.
Do you watch Game of Thrones, Cole?
I don't.
I would say of the bastards on this show, this is, I forget the guy who flays everybody. You guys know what I'm talking about. What's his name? It's not Renly. It's another R name, but you
Jeremy Renner?
No, I'm trying to remember the character's name.
Okay, I see, okay.
They know who I'm talking about. They're yelling at me.
Yeah.
If we had a Twitter feed, it would be going crazy right now.
Right.
Luckily, we don't yet.
Yeah.
But, okay, so what are you tasting here?
Well, the first thing that you're going to notice in this fine 8.1 ABV beer is that distinctive bourbon flavor. Because what they did was they took bourbon barrels and kept the beer in it. So you taste all of the oak from the barrel and the bourbon that was in the barrel before.
Yeah, I've been hearing about people doing this. Is this kind of a new thing? Have you seen this pop up in the last couple of years?
It's been around for a while. Arrogant Bastard. What's the horror film where it's Cabin Fever, where their
Cabin by the Lake or something?
Where their skin's coming off. I think it's called Cabin Fever.
That's a movie. I haven't seen it, but that is.
And that was one of the first times that audiences became familiar with Arrogant Bastard, because that's the beer that they took on their retreat.
Was there just like a real great close-up shot of it that kind of made no sense in the context of the movie?
That's just what they, they had 6-packs, as I recall, of Arrogant Bastard.
It was like, Erica, did you get the beer? She's like, yeah, but they only had Arrogant Bastard, but that's cool because it's great.
That's an Eli Roth movie. You haven't seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
I highly recommend that. It's from 2002. Eli Roth, I
did see Hostel.
I have a lot of hope for Eli Roth.
I liked him in Inglourious Bastards.
Yes, I liked him in Inglourious Bastards. But I think he's a good director. I interviewed him, and he was really jacked up on caffeine and was talking a mile a minute when I interviewed him.
Seems right.
But I think between Eli Roth and Ty West, those are two of my favorite young horror directors.
He definitely has like a Tarantino vibe to him too that he brings.
For sure. Yeah, he's got a real pop culture vibe.
Yeah, it's not just that horror fanboyness.
Exactly. Which brings us to today's film.
We watched 2004's, let me first get that out of the way, 2004's Dawn of the Dead.
Directed by Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder's directorial debut, written by James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy. Some big names attached to this.
And co-written by George A. Romero himself.
Co-written. Did he get it co-written, or is it based on original screenplay by...
It looks like he co-wrote it.
Oh, great. So I'll give my summation of a review in the same way. I'll tell a story. I had a friend in college who showed me a picture of his latest girlfriend, and I had like a quote that everyone used forever, which was, "Wow, she looks like a lot of fun." And I'll say that about this movie. This movie was a lot of fun. Like if it was a play and my friends were in it, I'd be like, you guys must have had a lot of fun up there.
Yeah, I hear you. No, it seemed like the actors were having a lot of fun. I think that the film could have been written much better. I don't think it's as good as Night of the Living Dead, which is George Romero's Vietnam era zombie film that really introduced audiences to the idea of zombies. Not that there hadn't been zombies in movies before, but that was the first time where we really came to grips with this modern idea of zombies. And I just felt like the pacing was off, the editing was off. I think that for me, the best thing that this movie had going for it was the casting. I thought Sarah Polley was amazing. Really good casting choice.
I thought she was like a knockoff Katherine Heigl.
And Ving Rhames as the badass cop.
Yeah,
pretty good. And Ty Burrell, what's the cable show that he's on where he's the father?
Which character is he?
Modern Family.
Oh,
he's,
yeah.
He's the dad in Modern Family, and he's hilarious. He's so nasty and snotty. I thought he was great. Loved him.
So a quick note on one reason why we watched this, comparing it to other movies we've watched. This isn't maybe a classic in anyone's mind, but again, we're just consuming culture and politics, or investigating culture and politics by consuming a movie, and there's definitely a lot to talk about with a movie like this.
Absolutely. Zombie movies are and should be, at least. I don't know if they all are, but they should be. They should always speak to the times. And this movie dunks you in that water when they first, the survivors of the zombie apocalypse all decide mutually to go to the mall, which is, of course, closed.
Yeah, I feel like you just gave the whole plot away.
Well, and I think that's a knock on the movie, that the plot can be reduced down to that.
I've struggled previously on this podcast to sum up movies and to give like a log line effectively, but ragtag group of survivors survives the zombie apocalypse in a mall and tries to escape. Boom, done.
That's it. That's really all there is to it.
That's really all it is. Yeah, it seems like there are technically probably maybe 4 locations.
Yeah, they did it on a tight budget for sure. The zombies in this movie, the zombies are fast. That's one of the differences. These zombies are quick. They will jump and run. They'll get right on you very quickly.
Not always, but a few times I definitely saw that they were sped up, and it's just very ridiculous. No, people are running at full speed, and they're speeding it up.
And the CGI is not very good in this movie. This is 2004, back in the old days when CGI just wasn't that great. And there's some CGI scenes I felt like were really disappointing. Really took me out of the movie.
Just talking about the context of like spectacle for 2004, do you think this would have been impressive? I mean, Zack Snyder's gone on to direct some of the biggest action superhero movies. But, looking back now, it's hard to see why you'd give him 300 if this is like his resume. But I suppose we're just maybe more used to movies like this with like ridiculously gross contrast and like not great special effects. It's like everything is fucking green in this. That post-Matrix high contrast, but like really not done well.
Right. Well, I think Watchmen is the best thing that Zack Snyder has ever done, by far and away. Really, by far. But at least this movie didn't go for the icy blue where everything looks like it's tinged with blue, like those bad vampire movies.
Yeah, or the blue and orange, which is everything. They literally have templates that they throw on movies.
They just saturate everything, and so everything it becomes this visual drone. So this movie, I thought was better about that, and it didn't do what I think that happens in 28 Days Later, where everything's so grimy and gritty and dark, and this, you could see everything very clearly.
You could almost to a fault. I learned that this was Snyder's first movie since doing commercials, and everything did have a crispness of a commercial. Everything popped in a certain way that at times looked cheesy. There were just these shots of Ving Rhames sometimes standing in the mall that I'm sure there was no CGI in the shot, but something about it felt very phony, and I think he's still in just like that.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Saturated.
I know what you mean. It's almost when you see those HD televisions, and no matter what Blu-ray you play through it, everything looks a little weird 3D, and you know what I'm talking about? Everything just has this
a lot of that's from
look to it.
From the upconverting the frame rate. I call it like the dad effect, and there's real so you film typically at 24 frames, but then HD is technically 60, so you up it and all the motion looks weird, and it like just like kind of
It's
renders
all just
perspective
too
on-
pristine and too clinical. It makes everything look like you're looking at it under a microscope.
So I coined a term watching this movie. This movie has about a moderate amount of what I'll call second unit nudity. In like any shot that Snyder was on, there I didn't see much nudity, but then I'm pretty sure that the studio had them go back and had that one girl wear lingerie and have sex like on top of exercise equipment, and then there were boobs in the title sequence, in the credit sequence.
Yeah, there was boobs in the beginning, but they were through the bloody windshield boobs.
Yeah, but even at the very end, I was finishing this on the train, and as soon as the credit sequence starts, there's boobs in it, just so the teenage boys like leave with like a good review of the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, now that you bring it up from a Joe Bob Briggs point of view, I have to say, more boobs. This movie needed more boobs. It would have been.
I think the studio agreed, and they put the second.
Well, no, but they needed it to be
Even
in context. I needed more boobies. I just would like to point out. I of course have a very funny relationship with the whole idea of how they aggregate reviews, and so they come up with a score.
The Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Yeah, the Rotten Tomatoes is like shockingly good.
Well, on IMDb, this movie has a 7.4, and I was comparing it just for the fun of it to The Descent, which I think is a much better horror film, and that has a lower score of 7.2. So there you go.
That I believe Rotten Tomatoes, as of the Wikipedia pages writing that I read, was at 76%. If you want to check that.
Wow.
Which is shocking, and like I read some of the reviews at the time, and people definitely thought that it executed on what it went for. Roger Ebert loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed it when it came out, and I gave it a positive review.
It was kind of new though. I think there's such oversaturation of zombies. Like we're like 9 seasons deep into The Walking Dead, a show of which I could not watch more than the first episode.
Things have changed a lot since 2004. That's for sure.
So let's get maybe a little bit into the cultural, political context. I thought something interesting was the first shot in the title sequence. You have a cold open where we learn this woman is a nurse, which is pretty much the only exposition that's useful from that. There's all these things where, you know, there's doctors needlessly a dick to her, and she has sex in the shower with her loving husband.
That's right, Lewis.
You remember his? Wow. Are you looking at the cast list right now? Like, what?
No, I think his name's Lewis. I could be wrong.
No one's gonna contradict you. But then the title sequence starts with a pretty dope old Johnny Cash song, as in recent Johnny Cash song, not young Johnny Cash.
Yeah, I like the Johnny Cash song. I thought that gave a good
music choices
were good sense of resonance to the.
But the first shot is of I believe
Tone.
Muslim people praying, is the first shot, and then it's kind of like cliched news footage of like war torn things. But 2004, we're just after the invasion of Iraq. We're like 18 months in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I think zombies, you know, there's so many thesis papers written on this every year, and I almost feel like I'm gonna, you know, make myself look foolish if I try to sum up what zombies are and talk about how they mean different things at different times. But in the context of 2004, I think the conflation of fundamentalist Islam was in people's head a bit, at least for part of the population. What do you think? What do you think zombies meant to us? Because it's definitely a lot different than when Romero first popularized zombies in
68, I think.
In 68
with Night of the Living Dead. I found that to be a real disappointment in this film because I wanted there to be more resonance from that direction, and I felt like it was lacking. I felt like it just wasn't there, and I was looking for it. But really, I mean, the best that you can say about this movie is you've got the black guy with the Russian wife who's very pregnant, and they have a brief. You couldn't even call it an argument. It's a, I don't know. They hint at an argument when they talk about whether the baby should have a Russian or an African name, and then they hug it out, and there's no answer.
You thought it was saying something about like just diversity, like crossing, or like the world colliding, or something?
I just felt like it was very vague. I thought it didn't, like, this movie didn't want to commit to anything.
Yeah, I think that's kind of typical of the times as I remember them. Is there was certainly a political climate where people are concerned about certain things on a large scale, and you're barely post 9/11, like all that is in your headspace. And then this movie was not really going for anything political or deep. It was more like a like Outbreak, like it's that kind of approach to zombies.
Well, you look at how most of the zombies were white.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of bald zombies for some reason. I don't know why that was, but it seemed like there was a lot of bald zombies.
Easier for makeup or something.
But then, none of them were wearing suits or anything. I always think it's really funny when you see some public protest and there's guys in suits that are getting bloodied up. There's just something really specific about that. There's some movie, I can't remember what it was, where there's a guy in a suit that inexplicably is running across the frame. And, that could have, even just having that element there, but they made it so generic. I felt like, and that to me, I found to be a real flaw with the film, because I wanted the zombies to have an identity. They should have just as much, objectively, they should have just as much identity as the humans.
Yeah, I don't want to claim that the movie is trying to make any, I'll say a point. The zombies aren't any specific representation. This movie did, though, if I'm not incorrect, kind of helped relaunch the zombie obsession. And so I'm interested if there's something in our culture that wanted to latch onto that. But yeah, this movie it's not trying to point fingers and say it's the bourgeoisie. It's
well, we had
this
phase a few years ago where people were getting high on, I don't know what they were getting high on, but they were getting high on stuff and attacking people. It happened in a couple of different places. I remember one was in Florida.
Like bath salts.
That's right,
yeah.
Bath salts. That's it. Good old bath salts. So that fortunately, it seems like that fad has died since then. But I remember somebody attacked a homeless person and they were eating him.
Well, it really
by the highway.
Yeah, and that was like when I hopefully we're getting out of the. Well, I don't know if I hope we're getting out of the zombie obsession, but we I don't know, we're near at least probably the peak of it. And so when those bath salts attack happened, it was just so primed. I remember I was in college and people were reading the zombie apocalypse guide. I went on a road trip and we had the zombie apocalypse guide on audio book, and we were listening to that. And it's just that humor is like, I don't find it like funny. Like I didn't enjoy it that much. It's like weirdly practical, but for a thing that'll never happen. I just kind of keep waiting to get the joke in a certain way. I can get into the commentary that it's making. I mean, I look at the legions of mindless Trump supporters, and I'm like, zombies make sense to me.
Right.
Like, I understand it there.
Right.
But it's hard to understand it without looking at it through a lens like that. Though what this movie does do great is it has a lot of like fun and games with the zombie tropes, where probably my favorite part of the movie is where they have a sniper who is one of their allies, and he's standing across or on a building across the parking lot, and they hold up a sign and they have celebrity names on it, and they're talking about zombies that look like this certain celebrity, and he picks them off.
That's a high point in the movie. You got your Burt Reynolds who's wearing a members only jacket, like a burgundy members only jacket, and you've got the sniper. I really like the whole conceit of having they're on top of the roof of the mall, but across the street is a guy who owns a gun shop, and he's on his roof.
He's taking them out.
And he's taking them out because he's got tons of ammunition, tons of guns. He's got a great scope on his rifle, and they're playing this game where they're Ving Rhames they both got binoculars, and they're looking at the zombies in the street between them. And Ving Rhames is whoever's calling who they want the guy to shoot, but they write it on a big board and hold it up so the guy the gun shop can see it from across the street. And then of course he very accurately takes out whoever they were referring to.
So I think that's the strongest point of this movie, and in thinking about, if you're to write something, I think what this movie gets best is its like fun and games portion, or maybe the promise of the premise. I'm using terms from Save the Cat. If you guys
it's an action movie. This is an all action movie.
I think
and they pump up the volume. Whenever there's a zombie attack, there's this. The musical cues or the soundscape cues really come in heavy and hard, and for me. That's why I think Night of the Living Dead is such a better film than this one, because there's none of that. It's very dry. Mm-hmm. When the zombies are coming, and also Night of the Living Dead. That's with the old style zombies who move slowly, and I appreciate the slow moving zombies. I think that it's a mistake to make zombies move fast. I like the old style zombies. They're coming, they're slow, but they're not stopping. They're gonna get you. I find it more delightful in the suspenseful.
Well, they're kind of having their cake and eating
experience.
it too with this type of zombies, where they can run super fast and they are strong enough to rip your arm off. But something like a dog door, it might as well be Fort Knox, man. They're not getting through that.
Why didn't they find the dog door earlier? I guess they weren't looking for it until the dog went through.
But yeah, even when the people go through and they shut it, and we know those things, it's just like thick cardboard, basically. They can't be stopped.
Yeah, you want a cat door, not a dog door.
I just want to name some things I liked about this movie.
Mekhi Phifer.
I
thought he was really good.
He was good. I liked Doug Stamper from House of Cards. Here with his probably his last role where he had hair. I liked when that nurse had to shoot a baby, and that was kind of
see, there you go. There you go. That to me, that's the real. Now we're getting into the political hook of the movie, which we got to give away some plot points, guys. So hopefully you've seen this movie, or you won't care if you watch it again. You'll wait for this particular moment to occur, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, there it is." When they have to make the decision, who shoots the baby? I can't remember who it is.
The nurse does.
The nurse.
Yeah, she's like, "I got this."
It would
one.
have to be
one.
the nurse.
It's a medical procedure,
right? Because the baby has been.
It's a zombie baby.
Has been in the womb of the woman turned zombie, so naturally she is giving birth to the zombie.
To the zombie baby.
Is it a daughter? I think it's a girl, right?
Mekhi Phifer goes, "It's a girl."
Yeah.
And then he has a shootout with a concerned old woman. That was one of the. Well, I'm interested in the act of violence that actually have nothing to do with zombies.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the core of the movie, the centerpiece scene of the movie.
Yeah, he gets in a fight with this woman who comes in, realizes that this woman has been turned into a zombie who just had a baby. And
his wife's been turned into a baby. The woman who comes in she's a newly joined member of the survivors. She's an older woman, middle-aged woman.
Yeah, I'd say her defining characteristics is she's an old woman.
And she smokes.
Oh, real sidebar real quick. So, Tarantino, a lot of directors have different obsessions you see throughout their films. Tarantino's got his foot thing, a lot of feet in his movies.
Right.
Zack Snyder seems obsessed with things dropping to the ground in slow motion.
Oh, yes.
That doesn't pay off.
Count the number of shells that fall to the ground after a bullet is fired.
I thought about this woman, she's standing outside the baby thing, and she puts out her cigarette, and she drops the cigarette, and we watch it drop in slow motion.
And then she steps on it.
She steps on it. So I'm like, this is coming back somehow. I need to be paying attention to this. No, not at all.
No, that's a terrible trope. That should have been edited out of the movie.
Yeah, I feel like Robert Zemeckis is shooting himself in his zombie brain right now.
But that's the thing about this movie. It's more of an action movie than any kind of political polemic, and it relies so heavily on that.
But an action movie needs more set pieces than this. It needs better directed action scenes than this.
Well, I don't know. It's a pretty good action scene when the bus has to plow through the crowd and they have to blow up half the crowd with a tank of propane.
I'm just gonna now I'm in nitpick mode. Okay, so apparently, propane tanks, of different sizes, will make basically a hydrogen bomb explosion. But
MythBusters would have had a field day with this
Oh
movie.
man, I bet they've actually done one on it.
They should have.
He blows up the first little tank that you'd have on your barbecue. It's enormous. Later, he blows up one that I don't know you'd put on in a giant factory
Barbecue.
or something.
Yeah,
He's in a van with it. It's the
Yeah,
size 6 feet tall, and it's a decent explosion.
Yeah, I wanted so much more from the movie, and what I came away with it relishing really was the performances from Ving Rhames and Sarah Polley and Ty Burrell. I felt like those performances really added a lot. And who are we missing? The boyfriend. The boyfriend I thought was good too.
The boyfriend of
Sarah Polley.
The later boyfriend.
Yeah,
the TV salesman.
Right.
He's kind of the...
What is that guy's name?
I don't know.
Because we'll never see him again.
I've never seen him in anything again. I was honestly...
There's a lot of people in this movie.
There's lots of people in me you never see again.
Yeah, sadly.
A couple people stick through.
Jake Weber.
Oh, the
boyfriend.
The unforgettable...
Sarah Polley's boyfriend.
What's Sarah Polley in?
Sarah Polley is the Canadian actress. She earned her stripes doing...
She's contextless for me in this, and I was just like, why is she in this movie?
Oh, that's so sad. Well, that's what happens with the Canadians.
But I like the guy who goes on. It's Michael something who plays Doug Stamper on House of Cards, and just these movies are just like. One lesson for it is maybe you have to do this in these zombies movies. Is everyone shows up in their uniform that they exist in? If you're a cop, you're gonna be dressed as a cop.
Right.
Those
tropes are there.
If you're Mekhi Phifer is just I guess we're just supposed to think he's just I want to use the word thug. It's never described that he just looks like
he's
an average black guy, but the cop is I didn't steal everything.
He's the urban youth. Yeah. I just a sidebar about Sarah Polley. She came to notoriety through her films with Adam McGoyan. I think she was in. I know she was in Exotica. She might have done more stuff with Adam McGoyan. She directed a documentary about her mom a couple years ago. I can't remember the name of it. That was pretty good.
Oh, what was that called? It was... I totally know what you're talking about.
Stories We Tell.
Stories We Tell. Oh, that's her?
That's her.
Okay, I love this woman. That's great.
Yeah, she's great. She's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
She her character forgets her husband real quick.
Yeah.
She's much more upset about her second love interest being taken away than her first one.
It is kind of cool though how hubby gets taken out by the daughter.
Yeah. What?
That's like an exorcist moment.
It was like a neighbor. It wasn't. I don't think it was their daughter.
No, that was their daughter, right?
I don't think it was their daughter because they.
She's in her nightgown.
Yeah, it. I agree, it was vague, but I do not believe they were parents. She runs into that girl on the street. Yeah, this is very confusing. She runs into that girl on the street and
back to the beginning of the movie.
Mentions that girl's mom, I think, to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was confusing who that girl was. They do just bone and go to bed as if they're non-parents.
Yeah. And they have to be very clean when they're having sex in the shower. It's very important to be clean, and if you're both showering at the same time, then you know that you're both very, very clean.
And that cleanliness will come in handy when you're checking for zombie bites later. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we did this movie. I think it's probably for me personally, it's a low point in Le Grande Bouffe, The Big Feast. That's not to say that I'm not really happy that we did it. I expected more. I came to it because I had seen it and reviewed it 12 years ago. I thought that it was better than it was, and if I had to review it today, I'd give it a C.
On its own terms, in its own day, I think this movie was probably a B. Now, looking back in retrospect, with our real overload of zombiness, with our better special effects, and also just seeing where the people who made this have gone, yeah, this movie kind of sucks. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I watched this movie virtually completely on the subway with people on my iPhone. So if you critique, if you want to like critique me like David Lynch for watching things on my phone, like that's fair. But it was kind of a fun thing to try to. I was very embarrassed by people seeing me, and then I had this weird thought, which was, I was embarrassed that they would see what I was watching, but I was like, well, maybe they'll just think I'm watching The Walking Dead. Because I thought if anyone was like, is that 2004's The Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
What a weird thing to be watching.
I think you have gone out there and you have put a price on the Brooklyn experience, because what train did you ride? The F train?
Yeah, I was on the L train.
The L train.
Yeah, I don't want to get caught dead on the L train watching an old zombie.
So you're right in line with the Brooklyn hipster mode, and people they're tabulating that data as we speak.
Yeah, no, there's some website, I don't even know what it is, where I'm being judged by.
You are so being judged,
viewing habits.
And what they're judging you by is 28 Days Later, and they're saying he could have been watching 28 Days Later, but instead he was watching a remake of Dawn of the Dead, not even the real Dawn of the Dead. So it's bad for you. I'm sorry,
yeah,
but only for a moment.
It's not great.
Yeah, but that'll blow over quickly. And on that note, thank you for listening to the Grande Bouffe,
The Big Feast.
Boy, that's what 8.1 will do. I can't even pronounce Le Grande Bouffe anymore. Tune in next week. Le Grande Bouffe every Friday.
Talk to you soon.